The Gibson Certified Vintage collection got a new drop this week. Let's go ahead and check them out. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Starting in 2023, Gibson decided to sell vintage guitars. Some of these are things that they had purchased in order to help them make more accurate replicas and reissues. Other times it was things that they had in their own personal vault that just never sold. So sometimes it's golden era 50s, 60s stuff. Other times it's weird 80s prototypes that have never seen the light of day. It's been a while since we've done one of these. But if you want to get caught up on the other ones, just type in Gibson Certified Vintage Trogly and you'll see all the videos. I'm always the most excited for the 80s ones, and look what showed up, a Gibson Les Paul. These are very cool instruments because they're part of the whole prehistoric era, but it's before 1983, technically making them prehistorics. Leo's was a dealer that custom ordered these because he thought they would be better than the Heritage series. So you get things like the ABR1 bridge, the new reissue style knobs. Generally speaking, for the time, these are actually pretty nice reissues, but they have one thing that makes them easily identifiable. It's their super goofy high Gibson logo. You've heard of low Gibson logos before, but these have the high one. Like, this one's really not even that bad. Some of them are all the way up there. So that's one way you can tell. The other one is by their serial number. They are properly ink stamped, however, it's not in the usual 9XXXX format. It's L, and then I can never tell, is that a 1 or an I? It looks like a 1, but that stands for Leo's Les Paul, and then it's your production number, 0131. So this is the 131st one that they made. However, there's an additional classification that you need to know about Leo's Les Pauls. They were made both in Nashville and Kalamazoo. How on earth can you tell? Because the Kalamazoo ones are worth a little bit more. Well, A, you want to look to see if you've got tortoiseshell side marker inlays, but sometimes that can be hard to do in photos, and asking a seller for that can be tricky. But if you can get them to pop off the back cover, there will be a traditional serial number stamped in the rim. So right here, you can actually tell it was made in 1982, what day, the 238th day, as well as the production number for that particular day, which looks like it might say 041 in this case. And all things considered, that's a pretty nice top for this era. That is considered a collectible guitar. Now on to the downside, it looks like there's some shifting going on with the neck. My guess is this was returned from the dealer due to shipping damage and it just sat in Gibson's vault since then. But that was kind of the bummer on this one, but our pot codes date to 1982. Looks like maybe the 9th week. And it's definitely got some finish checking going on. Maybe even a little bit of some sort of a contamination over here where the wing joined on. You know what that is? Somebody greased these tuners at one point and it sank into the wood. That's exactly what happened, because sometimes it'll also sink into lacquer check lines like that. But it looks like the original case has disintegrated and they replaced it with a modern day custom shop lift-in. And apparently a new nylon nut has been installed. It sold pretty quick for $9,500. Now if you're going to ask me, how much of a premium did that go for? I would imagine on Reverb that'd be like a $6,500 to $7,500-ish. But if Gibson can get those prices, more power to them. This one got me pumped up. A left-handed, new old stock looking ES-347. We just documented a really cool Silverburst 347, and ever since that video and me finally understanding this model, they've grown on me. I like these things. So imagine regular 335 body, but you get an obnoxiously long tailpiece, which is a TP6 in this case, with your regular binding styles. You've got the Series 7 pickups, but they are coil splittable. So you can get the full humbucking modes and kind of a single coil-esque tone out of them. And the nice speed knobs, and look at that gorgeous tobacco finish. That works incredibly well. However, where things start to become non-335-like is the fretboard. It's ebony, you got your pearl block inlays, it's more like a 355 at that point, until you get to the headstock. That's where you get more premium features, like this one having the brass nut. It's got the screen printed ES-347 due to the year that this one was produced, but hey, check that out. Flip out winding tuners. Got those cool ninja stars on that one. But now we flip it over onto the backside. So nice good colors here. We can see the diamond posi lock strap lock buttons, but check out that neck. That looks like it might have some mild flame figuring, which is pretty cool for this one. That's a wood grain lottery thing. Sadly, no real good close-ups on that, but it is a 3-piece maple neck. And looking up here, it was produced 1981, 293rd day of the year. Kalamazoo, production number 56. and it's got the original case. Now, 347s, they're not the most popular guitar in the world. Generally on Reverb, you'll see them range between 3 and 5,000-ish, depending on the finish. This one being the new old stock vibes with that on the pickguard being really clean and a Lefty, they probably could have put another $1,000 on that, to be honest. Now, that's the end of the era that I know, love, and appreciate so much, but I am a big fan of the ES-295s. This one sold very quickly for just shy of 20 grand. Let's check it out together, because a lot of times these things just get really beat up. But this is a first year example and in relatively clean condition so far from what we can see. It's got the gold trapeze wrap tailpiece with most of the gold worn off, but otherwise, I mean, the binding looks really clean. Pickguard's not all scratched up, original knobs. P90s are looking good. Your wood spacer block is still there on the bridge pickup. As far as the face of the headstock goes, from this era, that is really clean, but interesting crack right there. I'm not seeing any history on this particular one, so I don't think it was necessarily something they had in their vault since the 50s and moved with them to Nashville. But is it a perfect Goldie? No. Like, the body's okay, but on the neck, it's very common for these things to green and it will just start flaking off. In fact, a lot of times it's common just to see people sand down the neck a little bit just to get all of the green and flakiness off. I think the rule of thumb is if it has 90% of the finish yet, you get a premium, but it devalues it the more finish that's gone. So on the side, as far as these goes, it's not that bad. On the other side of the neck, you can see the damage here. Somebody's really anchoring right there to play in that 3rd to 5th fret area, it seems. As far as modifications on this one, it looks like the pickguard bracket nut was missing and replaced with a custom shop replica. There was light overspray on the headstock that was carefully removed by Tom Murphy. That's kind of cool. Makes me wonder, what was the overspray there for in the first place? But to that I say, thank you, Gibson, for disclosing that stuff. There's a lot of dealers that would not. And the case it comes with looks pretty sweet, but 19.5 went quick. As far as what's currently on Reverb, it seems somewhere around there. Let's see what this $20,000 one's got going on. Maybe a little bit more beat up on the top. Definitely has a lot more play on the fretboard. You can tell how much oil that thing's absorbed. Yeah, the neck's not quite as good on that one. But there is this one for 22 on Reverb, so it seems like they really didn't price that one too badly as compared to what is currently on the market. And that's why it sold. But let me tell you, buy yourselves a player's grade 295 and never look back. I had a crusty old one that was just super crazily played once. That was back when I could pick this thing up for like $2,500. Can't do that anymore. But somebody had cut a big hole out of it down here to work on the electronics. If I remember correctly, it didn't really play much past the 12th fret because the neck needed a little bit of help. And it had quite literally the worst headstock break you could ever ask for. It was diagonally split down the back, but man, did this thing have a vibe. All the finish was just sanded off the back of the neck. But that is the one that made me fall in love with the 295. And if you want a little bit more of a modernized take, I've also done the Scotty Moore reissue. But next up on this release, they had a 1955 Gibson Les Paul Custom. It is still currently available for $85,000. We just recently documented a reissue of this staple pickup Les Paul Custom. That appears to be in pretty fine shape at first glance, like hardly any finish checking, not a lot of rub through areas. Even the gold is very immaculate. I guess I understand their asking price a little bit more. Let's see, how's the headstock? It's a good one, it's a long one. Everything looks kosher to me. Even the lacquer really has not aged that much. Wow. Not even the back? Yeah, that's a collector's grade one for sure. Looks like we got the gray Tiger capacitors. Doesn't look like anything's been touched here either. It's not perfect though. There is a very small ding right there. That's unfortunate. Even though I would normally say leave it alone, I feel like the right luthier could touch that perfectly. So there's a note written in Swedish that says, I bought this guitar in an advertisement. It was in this town, so I went up and checked it. A younger guy owned it then, and he had received a tip that there was an elderly man who had it in his closet, so he went and bought it from him. So that guy bought it thinking he was going to become a musician, never did, and only played it at home. This will sell, it's just a matter of time. I need to click off this page before I make a terrible mistake. But now we've got other things that, yes, they're cool, but they're more cool to play rather than look at. So it's a 1960 ES-335. The rundown on this one is it's been refretted, the original bridge has been replaced, although it's in the case, it's because it collapsed. So they got a custom shop one on there, and this one initially shipped from them on March 18th of 1960. But whoa, hold the phone. 2-piece back, 1-piece top. Okay, so a 1-piece top, that's nothing special. That's how most of these are done. So the top looks normal. I've got to see this back. Holy cow. I have never seen that. Is that a thing in the vintage world? I haven't really paid attention to these much. They have a seam line, so that's just even more pieces of wood being put together. That's kind of cool. I would like to see a center seam kind of like a Les Paul Supreme, but on the back of a 335. Gibson, let's see you do something like that. That could be fun. Headstock does have some edge wear. It's not quite as clean as that custom. And ooh, they did a pretty good job on that refret. I mean, there's not much fret nibs to begin with on those style of guitars, but they didn't go like super over on the binding or anything like that, so that was a nice touch. So you can tell who did it definitely knew what they were doing. But just like that custom, you got all kinds of good stuff. Sales receipt, original hang tags, there's that bridge that they were talking about, original strap, L-pronged cable, and another very suspiciously clean looking case. That one is available for $80,000. I can't comment on that because I have little to no experience. But next up, 1 year later, there's a 61 style for half the price almost, $4,500. But apparently Gibson's had this one for a while because it came from their vault. And it's all original except for reproduction tuners. So unfortunately no additional tails on this one, but it's not quite as clean as some of these other ones we've been seeing. Definitely have some F-hole wear. Got that low Gibson logo on this one. So we had a low and a high this time. And the back, that's a strange pattern. It's like the dark burst here just disappears. Possible it could have faded out, like this was sitting on a stand and the way the window hit, only this area got faded out. What's kind of sad is by itself, this thing would be a showstopper. But as compared to all these other crazy ones we looked at, it's like, nah, that's a runt. Then they also had a couple of Epiphones, an FT-110 Frontier Sunburst from 1969, offered at $8,500. Well, it's an acoustic. It has the inlays with the notches in it that were later used on the Howard Roberts electric guitars. But you got your bumpy headstock. It looks like a relatively plain back, but it's so nicely book matched. That's got its own vibe. And then a mahogany neck joining onto your maple rims. And okay, you do have a little bit of a burst on the edge. And then lastly, a ravioli bass for $7,500 in royal tan. So this Rivoli actually has some interesting stuff. So this is a baritone switch on it. Headstock is very similar to the last one. It's got some edge wear, but it doesn't seem too beat up. But this one was discovered in the Gibson vault, which means they probably had it for a while. So which was your favorite of the new ones? For me, I love seeing the weird 70s and 80s stuff, even if they were just dealer returns, damaged things that they forgot about and are now unearthing. So I think Leo's is number one. The 347's cool, but I've got to give number 2 to the 295, then number 3 to 347. And oh man, that 61 wasn't even cool enough for the leading photo. Poor guy. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.